What's up, you guys, and welcome to another Dark Sage Interlude. I am your host, Chase the Dark Sage, and this show is brought to you by Beyond Beats and Culture. And this is a show where I basically just give you guys a bit of an insight, a bit of a look into the niches and the stuff that I really love in hip hop and things that I really want to talk about or that's on my mind. And I'm like, yo, no one's talking about this. Let's go ahead and talk about this. But before we actually get into the actual video itself, make sure you hit the subscribe button and like the video if you have not already. But you guys already saw the thumbnail. You guys already saw the title. We are going to be talking about Rick Ross today, specifically how he was moving during the blog era itself. Now, I just had this on my mind the other day because I listened to Rich Forever because I believe this is like what, the 11, 12 year anniversary of it. I talked about it on the show, so make sure you go check out the show Beyond Beats and Culture itself. But I was like, yo, like, and after that came on, you know, I went on Spotify and I just, you know, wanted to listen to some more Rick Ross, but I wanted to listen to some of the songs that I really loved during that era. And so going to Teflon Don, you got the hits on there like BMF, MC Hammer, Riding Through the Music, was it Ashton Martin music with Drake as a feature on there. But then you also had like so much music that he was putting out with his actual label itself, Maybach Music Group itself. And then you got to think about everything else that was coming out during the time as well with his feature run. And so I put on Twitter, Rick Ross's blog era run needs to be studied. And it needs to be talked about because I feel like no one actually really talks about it. Now, he had dope mixtapes. He had what? He had the Albert Anastasia EP. He had, dang, I need to pull it up right here, which I got it right here. Ashes to Ashes, Rich Forever, the Black Bar Mitzvah, the H, the Lost album. You could go ahead and toss that somewhere else. Black Dollar and Renzo remixes. Even though I don't count really his 2015 stuff, and I really don't care about the stuff after the Black Bar Mitzvah, even though I'm not saying Black Dollar and Renzo remixes are bad. I think that they're good projects overall, but these aren't the things that I'm really focusing on when I say this right here, right? When I make that tweet. He had great albums. When we go to his album output and the albums that he was putting out, Teflon Don. Deeper Than Rap, yes, it was at the tail, well, not the tail end, but it was at the like the really beginning of the blog era. Deeper Than Rap was not an album I really liked, but Teflon Don, oh, Teflon Don is a different beast. God Forgives I Don't, Mastermind, and to me, right there, that three right there, that run was phenomenal. Then we got the good label output / compilation albums. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Rick Ross at one point was putting out label albums under his group, the MMG or Maybach Music Group. He got Self-Made Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3. Now Volume 2. That's a different animal. I liked Volume 1. Volume 1 was pretty good music, but Volume 2 was where it was at when it comes to like him really displaying his artists, giving them basically a showcase, basically giving them that platform to really show out with other feature artists that they were friends with and got them on the song as well. Oh my gosh, when we talk about Self-Made Volume 2, we don't talk about like label groups or like just group albums in general, like not like a group like Pro Era, ASAP like that. No. A label type group situation happening right there. We gotta talk about that. But then he also has some phenomenal features as well when it comes to songs like dang, this is all his lead songs right here. When it comes to songs that he was going crazy on, him and DJ Khaled, whenever he would get on a DJ Khaled song, I know people hate DJ Khaled, but let's not lie, when Rick Ross was on the DJ Khaled songs, he was going in on them songs right there. We have his feature on Ace Hood's Hustle Hard, which is not included in here, which is crazy to me, but his feature on there, John off of Lil Wayne's The Carter 4, Tupac's Back, Welcome to My Hood. The features that he has on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy with Devil in a New Dress, one of his best verses of all time, and his verse on Monster as well. Even though Nicki was a standout, he still gave a goddamn good verse on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I'm on one, I'm a boss. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm naming this stuff right here, and some of you people, y'all are like, yo, like, this is really coming back to me. Like, I remember like the little run that Rick Ross was having. He was everywhere at the time. Bag of Money, which off of Self-Made Volume 2. Make sure y'all go ahead and check it out. Take It to the Head right here. Born Stunner, Pop That, him on French Montana, him with Omarion. I Wish You Would, like I said, the DJ Khaled stuff that he was doing at the time as well. Just a whole bunch of stuff that, oh, Bugatti, he was on Ace Hood's song right here, and he was on Pusha T's Millions, which off of Wrath the King. Oh my gosh. And we got his most infamous verse, You Don't Even Know It, which without like him saying that crazy bar, this was still a good verse. I'm not gonna cap. Y'all probably gonna go crazy if I say something like that, but this is still a good verse. I don't care. Rick Ross floated on that beat. No New Friends, which was like started from the bottom remix, basically. I Want to Be With You. You know, Rick Ross basically had a phenomenal run during this time. And so I really had to think about it like, yo, Rick Ross is someone who's run during the blog era we don't really talk about enough like that. Like I said, dope mixtapes, great albums, good label output and compilation albums, and phenomenal features. I mean, just look at the stuff that he was coming out with. When it comes to Teflon Don, Super High, BMF, Live Fast, Die Young, Ashton Martin Music. To me, this is Rick Ross's best project. I mean, the way that he starts this project off, I don't know if we're ever going to review this on the channel, but I at least want to be documented talking about this somewhere. This album, to me, culminates the best parts of Rick Ross when it comes to his banger songs, like the production that he has with Lex Luger, but also his luxurious raps or his luxurious mafioso lifestyle that he kind of like raps about on other production styles as well. Songs like Freemason, Tears of Joy, Maybach Music 3, Super High. What more can I say about Rick Ross, especially when it comes to Teflon Don? But then we got the banger songs like BMF and Ashton Martin Music, MC Hammer, even though Ashton Martin Music, it's one of those like vibey, cool, good, really good songs, you get what I'm saying? And you know, Drake did assist the boy with that, but this album right here was good. Then we get God Forgives I Don't, which is the album that came out after Teflon Don. And this is an album that I don't know what the reception was like at this point, but I know a lot of people didn't really talk about this, at least in the circles that I was hanging out with, even though I didn't really hang out with a lot of hip hop heads. I didn't really hang out with people that was into music like that. But going through this album right here, to me, this helped, is the word I want to say, emphasize like this boss-like luxurious lifestyle that Rick Ross has. To me, it's like Teflon Don kind of, but on steroids, but not as consistent and not as concise and not as focused as Teflon Don is. Now we got songs like Pirates, which is a good intro song for the actual album itself. Three Kings, Dr. Dre and Jay-Z on there. Maybach Music 4, he got to get that boy Neo back. Andre 3000 on 16. Then we got the songs that yeah, we got this luxurious half right here from 1 to 7 with Pray For Us to Amsterdam. But then we get a song like Hold Me Back, which is completely opposite of what we was doing on this project before. Then we got 9/11, another banger track. So Sophisticated, another banger track, which is a really good song, by the way. But then we get back to that luxurious lifestyle like music right here. We got Triple Beam Dreams with Nas, which actually comes off of Rich Forever, which also comes off of Rich Forever, which we will be talking about in this video as well a little bit. But coming off of this album right here, this is a top 5 Rick Ross album right here. Top 3. I'm trying to think of like where this would rank in Rick Ross's discography. I mean, it's in the top half, obviously. It's like within the top 5, but this is a really good project. Then we got Mastermind, which is the last album that we'll be talking about for this little run that Rick Ross was having right here, which I recently re-listened to this. This album is good. Now, I do have my qualms with it, but overall, this album is like still so good. Like I said, it's like God Forgives I Don't. It's not as luxurious lifestyle raps or luxurious production like God Forgives I Don't or Teflon Don, but it still has those really good instrumentals, the really good beat selection that Rick Ross has. He has a really good ear for beats. And this is coming off of him and Jeezy's beef, them actually having to tussle at the BET Awards, and them like squashing it, because they had a beef for a long time, and them squashing it, and seeing Jeezy actually be featured on a Rick Ross album again, I thought that was something that I would never see. And that's why I always say, if Jeezy and Gucci Mane can make up, and if Rick Ross and Jeezy can make up, I mean, yeah, because Rick Ross and Gucci did. I mean, I don't know what I just said a while ago. I probably mixed everything up right there. But if Jeezy and Gucci can make up, and if Jeezy and Rick Ross can make up, anybody in hip hop basically can make up at that point. But when we have songs like Rich is Gangsta, Drug Dealer's Dream, and then he kind of like has this thing where it's like he's paying ode to Biggie and 90s rap, because he does have a lot of references to there, like Wu-Tang, shame on a Negro that tried to run game on a Negro. He also has Diddy on here doing some skits here and there. I think Mace is on here as well at one point. But the production that he enlists on here, some of the features that he enlists on here as well, you can hear that it has that dichotomy of Rick Ross where luxurious gangster rap lifestyle, mafioso raps, but it also has the it also has the bangers. You get what I'm saying? And so to me, this album was really good. It was really consistent from tracks 1 to 11, which is Black and White. Everything after that, it kind of like loses its way a bit with me, which is like 5 tracks if you want to include the skit. And the bonus tracks, they cool, but they don't really do much for me. I could have done without the bonus tracks personally, but this album was really good. Now, is it his best? No, but I have a huge nostalgic tie for it, and it's one of my favorites though. But let's actually go ahead and talk about Ashes to Ashes a little bit. This is one of those mixtapes that came out after Teflon Don itself, with the big song that we all know, 9 Piece, which actually has Lil Wayne on the remix, but on the actual mixtape version, it's featuring T.I. Phenomenal songs. This is also a good mixtape as well, especially if you want some bangers. And then we get to my favorite mixtape by that boy Ricky Rose, Rich Forever. When we talk about mixtapes that could have been albums, this is it. This is one of them right here. This is one of my favorite mixtapes of all time. January 6, 2012. I was in high school at this time. Oh my gosh, this mixtape was so good. This gave me that trap banger Rick Ross that I wanted, while also just making him sound so savage-like, which made him sound so aggressive on this production right here. And the way that Rick Ross actually conveys what he's rapping, you just feel it. You get what I'm saying? Like you feel it, like you believe it. And yes, he had the whole correctional officer thing, him and 50 Cent was beefing. He couldn't shake that in terms of social media or comment sections. But when it came to the actual music itself, he did the smart thing by not addressing any of that. And he was just making fire music at the time. Oh my gosh. This man was on a run, even with songs like Triple Beam Dreams featuring Nas, Mind Games with Kelly Rowland, New Bugatti. Yes, I know Diddy's on here. Hey, during that time, Diddy was cool, especially when he was just really talking. I mean, he had a feature on the actual song, but still, hey. Holy Ghost, High Definition, Yellow Diamonds, F 'em, my favorite song on the project itself with 2 Chainz and Wale. Ring Ring featuring Future. This was during Future's run, where he was like the hook guy. He was the guy that you went to for the fire chorus. Stay Scheming with Drake and French Montana, where Drake shoots some shots at Common. Come on, dog. Come on. What are we doing right now? And then we got Black Bar Mitzvah, where, as usual, Rick Ross is doing this luxurious lifestyle. Like, yo, I'm a boss. Like, you know, I'm with, you know, those type of people. I don't want to say because I don't want to trigger YouTube's algorithm or anything like that. But the Black Bar Mitzvah, this came out after Rich Forever. And this mixtape right here was basically him going over other people's beats at the time right here. And I loved it because he will mix like his verse in with the actual song, and he would keep some of the song itself, but he wouldn't keep the whole song. I mean, it popularized songs like Us by Lil Reese, because wasn't nobody listening to that. He had a verse on Mercy at the time from Good Music, birthday song. He had a verse on that. Burn. Rick Ross was floating on some of these beats right here. And he did kind of make a sequel to this with Renzo Remixes. I think Renzo Remixes, that actual mixtape, I think it was cool for what it was, especially with it kind of being like a spiritual successor or spiritual sequel to Black Bar Mitzvah. But, you know, to me, it wasn't like, it didn't have that impact like the Black Bar Mitzvah itself. But when we look at this right here, Rick Ross was on a crazy run. And the last project I do want to talk about on here, because I'm not going to talk about Albert Anastasia like that, because it's good. It goes into like Teflon Don. It's the prequel for it, if you get what I mean. But when we go into this, Rick Ross did have a group at the time, or he did have a label at the time that he was heavily promoting. He was heavily pushing with Meek Mill, Wale, Stally, and Omarion. And when he was doing his self-made stuff, I believe either Pill was on the first one. I don't know if he was part of Maybach Music Group at the time, but when it came to this project right here, Self-Made Volume 2, and I heard some of the songs, I'm like, yo, what is this, like, what project is this off of? And I saw Self-Made, and I saw Rick Ross on the front cover, and I saw his other artists, and like I said, this was during the hype of the blog era, so all these artists were in their prime at that time. And so going into Self-Made Volume 2, I think this is one of the best compilation albums or group label albums that we've ever gotten, for me personally, because I just really loved how this was actually going at. But when we have songs like Power Circle, where basically the main people in MMG displaying their ability, and Gunplay being on here, and with a fire verse, fire feature for Kendrick Lamar, Black Magic, Meek Mill, Rick Ross, This Thing of Ours, one of my, oh my gosh, that song is one of my favorite songs off of this project. All Birds, The Bangers, Acting Up, Fountain of Youth, Nipsey Hussle, I Be Putting On, that song, the vibes on that song, oh my gosh, The Zenith, MIA, FM, I Don't Care. Come on, man, I'm bringing back the nostalgia, you know? All right, Bag of Money, Black on Black, Foressa E, Bury Me a G. Rick Ross the ear of beats that he had on here, I don't know how exactly he put all this together right here, but man, he got these boys in the studio. He created fire. He created magic, man. And just looking at everything Rick Ross has done, I mean, just look at his Wikipedia page. Well, after Mastermind, to me, I fell off heavily off of Rick Ross, because Hood Billionaire, I thought was cool. Black Market was a good album as well. Rather You Than Me was good. Port of Miami was good. But to me, they didn't have that impact on me like those blog era projects did that he had coming out. I mean, look at his mixtapes. He didn't have a lot of mixtapes, especially during like the 2010s. He was already like peak of his career. Him still putting out mixtapes for free at an artist of his level, fantastic. Hey, I ain't mad at it, because Rick Ross, to me, his career elevated during the blog era. And you know, we have all these other mixtapes. Black Dollar was a good mixtape. Like I said, Renzo Remixes was a good mixtape as well. But Ashes to Ashes, Rich Forever, and the Black Bar Mitzvah itself, phenomenal. We already talked about his feature run that he kind of had as well. Rick Ross was like unstoppable during the blog era. I just can't believe, like, this is a run that no one really talks about, and it exists. I think that we kind of sleep on it. Like, if we really look at what Rick Ross was doing during the blog era, he was one of those artists that came out during the bling rap era, the contemporary rap era, the 2000s, but he excelled during the blog era. I don't know how he did it, man. It's kind of like he reinvented himself, but he was still growing as an artist, and he was still like actually collaborating and reaching out to other artists that were coming up as well. I think Rick Ross was making some of the more smart moves during that time to actually still be like within the in crowd, but still be like one of those artists that kind of like came out like really early on, especially with an album like Port of Miami and the song Hustling, which, like I said, Port of Miami was a good album, but come on, Teflon dog. Teflon dog. Like, what are we talking about right here? But yeah, I just thought about talking about that because, like I said, when it comes to this tweet that I made, I was like, yo, like, I kind of want to give Rick Ross his flowers. Like, we don't talk about Rick Ross like that. Like, yeah, I know now, like, all he does is like go on social media. He talks about stuff. He basically commentates. He really isn't active like that in music, especially like how he was working during the blog era, him pushing stuff out. I think the last project I heard from Rick Ross was him and Meek Mill's like project that they put out collaboratively together. I didn't like it like that. I thought that it was very misleading because the first two tracks, fire. The rest of it, not for me. But like I said, Rick Ross's blog era run needs to be studied because, like I said, dope mixtapes, great albums, good label output, compilation albums, and phenomenal features. Rick Ross was unstoppable during that time. You guys let me know though how you feel about Rick Ross. I know Rick Ross isn't really one of those guys that's really talked about within hip hop circles like that, at least based off of what I've seen, especially currently, because he isn't really current. He doesn't really put out music. Most of what Rick Ross is known for now is his social media antics. He was recently performing at Trump's inauguration, which is a whole mess in its own, which I really don't care about because I don't go to these guys for their moral compasses. I go to them for the fire music. I mean, look at all the stuff that Rick Ross is talking about in his music. You think I'm going to him for a moral compass? I'm just saying, like, I'm not one of them people like, oh, he performed for Trump. What is Rick Ross doing? But look at the stuff that he was talking about. I got it straight off the boat. He's selling drugs to the community. You think I'm really going to kill him for performing for Trump? I'm just saying, based off of the music, allegedly he was doing this stuff. I don't really care if he was or wasn't. He was coming out with fire music. Like I said, he beat the correctional officers' allegations that 50 was throwing at him during the time of their beef. That man was just putting out fire music. That didn't even affect his career at all. I don't know how Rick Ross did it. I don't know. But he beat like one of the biggest sins at the time of hip hop. Like, oh, you one of the feds? Man, I'm about to put out this fire music. I don't know how he beat it, but he beat it. He just came out with fire music during the blog era. I'm sorry, I'm getting hyped because I'm going to go listen to more Rick Ross after this video right here, because Rick Ross is just one of them artists that, man, I loved him during the blog era. Everyone knew I loved him during the blog era. People would look at me listening to artists like Jeezy, Gucci Mane, and Rick Ross. They'd be like, Chase, you don't cuss. You're such a good boy. You're basically straight edge at the time, and this is during high school. You don't cuss, like, but you listen to this type of music. I'm like, yeah. Because it's hard. Like, the music is hard. Look, if the music is hard, I'm jamming it. I'm sorry. I can't help it. Especially with the beat selection that Rick Ross would choose for his projects. The way he would rap on some of these beats. Oh my gosh. Rick Ross was in his bag during the blog era, and I miss it, man. I might need to go listen to some of the newer Rick Ross albums just to see if I can feel something, if I can get something from it. But yeah, like I said, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of Rick Ross, how you guys feel about Rick Ross during the blog era. What are some of your favorite songs, some of your favorite projects, or some of your favorite albums, some of your favorite features from Rick Ross during that blog era? Because man, this is the time that Rick Ross, he shined the most. That boy was putting in work. He was going in. I don't think Rick Ross could ever top like what he did during the blog era. But I'm hoping to be wrong. I'm hoping to be proven wrong, and Rick Ross comes out with a phenomenal album later on that maybe beats Teflon Don. Even though in my heart, it will never beat Teflon Don or Rich Forever. But yeah, like I said, let me know what you think about this down in the comment section down below. This has been another episode of Dark Sage's Interlude. Make sure before you head out, hit the subscribe button and like the video if you haven't already. But my name is Chase the Dark Sage. Peace.